I'm
You deleted
recording.
the whole thing, so you...
So, take two. Hey everybody, welcome to Streaming Screams. I'm Glenn Grubbs, and I'm here with my bestie Jessica Aragon. And we're going to talk about some horror movies. Today on the docket, we've got Barbarian from 2022, huge sensation in the horror community. And we also have Possession from 1981, which is one hell of a wild experience. No interjections?
No, not so far.
Okay, all right. As anybody who has listened to any episodes that may have preceded this, if this doesn't end up being the first episode, has probably figured out we don't know what we're doing. We're figuring it out as we go along. We're going to start with a synopsis of this movie before we talk about it, and then when we get to Possession, we're going to discuss it as we go over the plot, figure out which way works best for us. First up, we're going to be discussing Barbarian, written and directed by Zach Kreger.
From Whitest Kids You Know.
From Whitest Kids You Know, apparently.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
It's like I said, following the Jordan Peele thing of being comedy to horror.
I mean, it kind of makes sense because they're both so reliant on timing and atmosphere.
Yeah. Even
though the atmosphere for comedy is often very different.
Everything with timing.
Yeah, absolutely. So written and directed by Zach Kreger, starring Georgia Campbell as Tess, the ever-menacing Bill Skarsgård as Keith, the ever-punchable Justin Long as AJ, and Richard Blake as Frank. Barbarian's kind of an interesting one in that it almost feels like an anthology in the way that it's structured. It seems in a way like there's just different, somewhat related stories going on.
It's like 3 vignettes in a cohesive story.
Yeah, like the first 3 acts feel different and follow separate characters, and then the 4th act ties it all together. The first act begins with Tess arriving at her Air BnB in the pouring rain in what she does not yet realize is a pretty rough neighborhood of Detroit. She finds that her Airbnb is already occupied by Keith, played by Bill Skarsgård.
Known for Hemlock Grove and It. He is very purposefully cast in this role.
And very perfectly cast in this role. It's a very tense situation because neither of them really know what's going on, or at least Tess definitely doesn't know what's going on. We don't know if Keith knows what's going on, but for various reasons, there's nowhere else either of them can go, so they make do. Keith spends the entire night trying way too hard to show that he's not a threat to Tess, and Tess spends the entire time fighting back and forth between being suspicious and cautious, but also having a good time with Keith. Until Tess finds a mysterious door in the basement that leads to, among other things,
There's a bed with a camera, a camcorder, and a bloody handprint on the wall.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear what's going on there.
It's a rape room.
Yeah, not fun. Then we go to the next act.
Very abruptly,
which features Justin Long as a really douchey director who...
Is he a director or is he an actor?
I'm pretty sure he's a director. Okay. Or he's someone in... He's
a film guy. I don't remember.
Yeah. So he's the one that owns the Airbnb, and he is planning to sell it because he's been accused of rape. So now he needs to raise some money. Throughout his whole thing, we find out that he probably is guilty and is an absolute piece of garbage. But he doesn't think he is. And he's one of those people who has convinced himself that he is A-okay. And then he discovers the creepy passage. About that time, I believe we cut to the 3rd act.
Well, no, at first he's like, sweet, extra square footage.
Oh, yeah, God. Since he's getting ready to sell the place, he's just measuring everything. And nothing comes off weird to him about the hidden door or the rape room or the tunnels going to God knows where. And he just busts out the tape measure and is like, how can I make money?
Well, so just even though it's part of the synopsis, we'll talk about it later, but it is, that's when we find about the monster that wants to baby them.
Thank you. It's got an interesting continuity. So we get another hard cut to the past when apparently the neighborhood was beautiful. And
I think we forgot to mention this is in Detroit.
No, I said it was in Detroit.
Okay. Because it's in the 1980s when Detroit is still doing okay, but it's at the height of what they call the white flight.
Yeah, and one of the neighbors that we see during this scene where we find out how the neighborhood used to be has mentioned that it's going to hell. I always actually really love this cut because it feels like you're going from like that one episode of The X-Files with the inbred family. You smash cut to like a Wes Anderson movie. It has just the way the camera is focused on the house.
Sure.
And everything looks small and nicely colored. It looks very Wes Anderson until Frank, who is just a completely grumpy son of a bitch, walks out of the house and has an unpleasant conversation with his neighbor about how the whole neighborhood's going to hell. And then he, stalks a woman and then kidnaps her. And then we go back to present time where
AJ and Tess are still in the hole and they're trying to get out.
Right. So,
Tess escapes, and then she gets the cops involved. She looks disheveled, so they don't they think she's a crack addict.
And she's in Detroit. They're just like,
No.
You're on crack. That brings us to the fourth act where everything gets tied together. So we've got Tess and AJ who are stuck in this pit with this like crazy lady who's trying to, baby them.
Inbred mama.
There's an inbred mama. So there's a lot of inbred stuff going on.
Frank has been kidnapping women, having sex with them, having kids, and then I guess just having kids with those kids.
Yes.
To where there's just this freak inbred monster. Tess and AJ escape, and then eventually there's a climax where AJ has a redemption arc and realizes he's a piece of shit. But then, no, as soon as the moment where it's like me or Tess, he just like fucks over Tess, throws her off the building. Mama jumps after him, but she don't die. And then she gouges his eyes out. And then Tess has to shoot Mama in the face and movie.
Yep. So there's a lot to unpack here about,
So this whole movie was inspired by a book called The Gift of Fear. And it's a self-help book on how to read red flag of like Predator. And though it is kind of geared towards like women, it's not meant that way. It's just people like, hey, these are like traits. And there's 9 traits that they're like, this is what you watch out for. So they purposely make it so that Keith, Bill Skarsgård, in the first thing, he does all of these things very quickly.
Oh, he is just a million red flags.
But he ends up being the good guy, kind of.
I mean, sort of. You know what? One thing that I actually really like about this, we don't know that he was a good guy.
Yeah, because at the end, he is kind of a dick.
Well, we also never learn anything about him.
No.
We never know why he's
not
there.
the villain.
He's not the villain, but
they cast him on purpose because he's known as a villainous person.
Yeah, he's very much the red herring. But the interesting thought experiment here is, if they hadn't found that thing, would he have become a problem?
Okay, so I failing as a podcaster is what I should do in the future. Is I didn't write down the 9 traits, but one is like trying to set up things as like a we thing. We're in this situation.
Okay, yeah.
Number 2 is being overly helpful. So he's like, no, I'm carrying the bags. I'm going to bring your bags inside. Another one is not accepting no. So he's like, hey, can I make tea for you? And she says no, and then he still makes the tea. You looked it up. Yeah. We have the internet, people. We can look up things in real time.
So we've got force teaming, which I believe is what you were referring to as the we're in this together. Charm and niceness.
Look, let me tell you. I don't know if this is just a woman thing. I think everyone, but when anyone's overly trying to just be like suave or nice, it's a huge red flag for me.
Yeah.
Being nice isn't a red flag, but you can tell when somebody's just overly trying to be like, I'm someone you can trust. And I'm like, you overly trying to gain my trust is like scaring me.
There's a difference between being nice and trying to be nice.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even if you take a person who's genuinely nice and you stack them next to somebody who's trying to be nice, the person who's trying to be nice can still be like a million times nicer than the guy who's genuinely nice, but you can fucking tell.
You feel it. It makes you go, what are you hiding?
Yeah. Like it's clearly a mask.
He does this like through this whole segment. I will say this first vignette or segment is 100% the best part of the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the whole movie's great, but this is the best part. Like, this could just be a short film on its own and end with his, spoiler alert, demise.
Yeah.
And I think that's just all you need. You need nothing else. And that's just a perfect movie. They could have stretched this out to an hour and a half and it would have been perfect.
I agree, but I do like that they didn't do it. And I like where they went with it.
But I'm just saying, like, what they do with this, and even the part that there's like, so there's a part where, which, I'll go over the traits first.
Okay. So we've got force teaming, which we discussed, charm and niceness, which we've got. Too many details. You know, I actually don't think that he did this.
Yes, he does.
He's a very mysterious character.
He does do too many details, and the fact that he goes, oh, if situations were reversed, you would have never let me in the house.
Which, you know.
Is true. But I'm like, but that's him also. Like, why are you saying this?
Yeah.
Even that stuff is a fact. Why are you saying this? That seems aggressive to me. As a woman, that's very aggressive. Let me just tell you, this opening scene, every fucking woman has dealt with, like, this situation. I don't know if it's going to be part of the traits, but I don't think men understand how much fear women have in saying no.
I don't think men could comprehend it.
Because a lot of the times men all the time are like, why don't you just tell them no? And it's like, because no can just set off a man.
Yeah. There's, from what I understand talking to you and other women in my life, no can often be the difference between something bad happening and something awful happening.
Oh my God. I just remembered. Not joking. When we were watching just the opening, like 10 minutes, Craven told me, I don't understand why she wouldn't just go in. He seems fine. I would go in. Why wouldn't you just share a room with them?
I wouldn't go in.
No, I told that to my right-wing friend Kenny, and he also was like, that's bullshit. I ain't sharing a room with a stranger. And
yeah. It's
Craven literally to me was like, I don't understand what the like problem is. And I was like, what? This just shows your privilege. Not even your privilege, your ignorance.
So we're gonna cut the part where you call your husband ignorant out of the podcast, right?
No.
All right, here we go. Starting fucking fires, baby. Anyway, we've got typecasting.
Oh, that might be when he's like, oh, if the situation was reversed.
Yeah, definitely the type. That's typecasting, because the example they give here is, oh, I bet you're too stuck up to talk to a guy like that.
Yeah, so he literally does say, if the situation was reversed, you would have never let me in the house.
Yeah.
Red flag.
So then there's
because that's aggressive.
Loan sharking, which is giving unsolicited help to the chosen victim.
He forces bringing the bags in.
He does. And also, honestly, I realize that there are external reasons why she can't seem to get anywhere else, but he is a little over insistent that they just make do.
Yeah, I will say, I think this is just to keep the movie going. A lot of people have complained about this. She calls one place, they say they don't have room, and he gives a reason why, and she doesn't call anywhere else. A lot of people have actually criticized that. I'm like, it's a movie. We need to keep the plot. This is a small part of the movie. We're trying to keep going, so I don't criticize that. Because I'm like, they give you an explanation.
I think there's a general thing with audiences these days where somehow people seem to forget the movie only shows you snippets of everything.
Well, don't complain that it's a 2.5 hour movie if you want all these details.
Yeah. We don't actually know that she only called one place.
We just saw that.
She could have called 10 places. You know, what are they going to do? Show her calling all 10 places? They could have done a montage, but maybe they didn't feel like that fit the pacing.
A montage for that.
Yeah, I mean, a montage would have been fine, but like, whatever.
It's not needed. The point was made.
Yeah, you know, okay, I'm just gonna get off on a thing here. I really hate this thing where people constantly complain about like too many details or a story, and this happens so much with fucking video games. It drives me nuts. Too much hand holding and too much explanation and all of that. But then if anybody fucking trusts you to just figure something out on yourself, the audience today won't. And I don't know why. I don't know how that got trained out of people, but now I do. It's because Superman came back. That fucking son of a bitch. Ever since then, if you don't see it happen, it doesn't matter. Death is meaningless and nothing has stakes anymore. Yeah. It's fucking bullshit. Thanks, DC Comics, for ruining fiction as a whole. Even when that stupid first Star Wars of the new series came out, was it Force Awakens?
Sure.
Whatever. Han Solo dies. Spoilers for you. Even after that, a bunch of people, including Katie, were like, well, we don't really see him die.
My God.
He gets a fucking lightsaber thrown through him, and then he falls into a pit before the planet blows up. He's fucking dead. Like, just...
You know why he died too? Harrison Ford was like, I don't want anything to do with this anymore.
Well, he wanted to die in the second one.
Yeah. He's got better things to do. Fucking Harrison Ford.
Yeah. He's goddamn Indiana Jones,
Anyways, semantics.
Yeah. Point being, I'm just gonna, had to complain about audiences always wanting too many details, but then always complaining that there's too many details.
I'm somebody that does bitch. I don't bitch about those things. I point them out, but it's not because I actually care. It's just because I watch a lot of and I notice them. But I think it's funny. It doesn't ruin a movie for me.
I do sometimes even catch myself forgetting that movies don't show everything that's happening. Like, some movies take place over like 2 years. And you've got an hour and a half to tell a 2-year-long story.
15 minutes and 10 years passed.
Yeah, you're not showing everything. Even television shows can't do that. Mad Men was on for like 5 seasons and showed an entire goddamn decade.
Never watched it.
It was good.
Anyways, let's get back.
We are at The Unsolicited Promise.
Okay, so the only thing I can gauge for that one is that when she first tells him about the room as they're leaving, he is like, you sound insane, which I kind of get it, but he's like, let me go look at it and we'll leave together.
Yeah.
But he is like, please stay and I promise we'll leave together.
For me...
It also could be the wine thing. I mean, I don't know, because he does...
For me, The Unsolicited Promise was... I've actually done this one myself. And I know that I did it right after I've done it.
Well, these things individually aren't a problem. It's like combined.
Right. But I think that what could qualify here is simply him being like, go ahead and stay here. I promise I'm safe.
Yeah.
And I have done that. And I caught myself doing it immediately after. And I was like, well, I know I am safe. But like, that probably sounds fucking creepy.
Well, can we also talk about how like in the beginning of this movie, everything that's happened, this person, the girl, is not being stupid.
She is not.
No, as soon as she is, because he's like, you take the bedroom, I'll take the couch. She goes into the bedroom to get ready, realizes his wallet's still there, takes a picture of it, and texts it to her friend.
Yes.
Also, because it proves that he is who he says he is. He didn't give a fake name.
One thing that I do think is really good about this movie is the characters, except for AJ Long, who is always stupid and unlikable, are not stupid. She goes to a lot of lengths to protect herself.
But AJ is also just a realistic person.
Sure.
Men.
He's also just kind of Justin Long in another Justin Long.
Sure, but as we will get into, his whole thing when he's explaining to who's actually the director, his friend at the club.
I thought that was supposed to be a studio executive.
It is, but it's the guy from Whitest Kids,
The guy in the club
is the actual director.
Okay.
His friend he's talking to.
And
he's like, hey, just tell me what happened. And Justin Long was like, yeah, she was saying no. But then she eventually was into it. And he's like, well, was she really into it? And he's like, yeah, he was really into it. And it just reminds me of like the old sentiment that I think is kind of past, or I hope it has, of like guys used to always be told, don't give up. Don't take no for an answer.
Oh, I thought you were going to mention how like some guys have said to women, like, if it's going to happen, just lay back and enjoy it.
No, I was more thinking
because there was some senator that actually fucking literally said that.
Okay, well, I know. But I'm more talking about little boys when they like a girl, like grade school kids, and they're like, oh, they don't like me. Like, they used to be literally told, like,
just keep trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not as much of a thing, but I think it's fucked up because I think the people who used to say that still believe that, but now they're like, oh, be careful of women because you might get in legal trouble for just a couple minutes of fun.
Woke culture.
Yeah, but when we were in the 80s, it was literally like, be persistent.
Well,
so from his mindset, he didn't think he did anything wrong because he's like, oh, it's just being persistent.
I mean, and it's not just...
he even says to the guy he's talking to in the club, well, you know me, I'm persistent.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing because it's not just something that people would say, but like one of the reasons I've always hated romantic comedies as a whole is because they're all just some guy who doesn't deserve some chick for whatever reason.
Gaslit into it.
Yeah, she's basically gaslit into it. Half the time he breaks up her perfectly good relationship. Ugh. Some are fine. Anyway. Anyway, everything about this movie fucking rules. It's so tense and so
especially
dark.
this first scene. It's very, very tense because
the first act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very much like, is he a predator? And there's so many signs that they are. And then when it cools off, and then there's even, as you bring up romantic comedies, when the wine's introduced, because there's a point where he's like, hey, I noticed you didn't drink the tea that I made for you. It's probably because you think I drugged it, which is also like...
Yeah, glad you thought about that.
Yeah, glad you thought about it, boy. But he's like, so I saved the wine I didn't open it until you came out, so you know I didn't tamper with it. Which, again, let me tell you,
you can put a hypodermic needle through a cork.
Sure. But also,
Don't do that, kids.
No, but I've been in situations where like this, where there was a party I was going to go to, where...
I know what you're talking about.
An email was sent out stating things which made it seem like sex was implied. And I reached out to the vendor being like, hey, I'm not going to have sex with people. And their response was, well, there's free alcohol. Doesn't fill me with confidence.
Yo, fellow dudes, be better. Be better than that.
So this is a similar situation. It's not, who cares if it's drugged or not?
Right.
I'm already uncomfortable, and what is your go-to? Well, I have wine. But then he relates to her because it turns out he's there for a similar reason as like a study she did.
Yeah, and
she did a whole study about
gentrification.
No, that's why he was there.
Yeah.
To do gentrification, but based on things that she wrote.
Right.
And so then
do a study of gentrification, not do gentrification himself.
Yeah. But then she seems more comfortable because of that, because they start talking about her work, which is where you kind of, again, this is one of the things too. It's like, oh, now we have a common thing, which is like iffy. And then she drinks the wine, and then the rest of it is playful.
Right.
Until they're going to bed, and then he does this whole thing where he like covers himself with the bed sheet, and he's like, no, you got to do it this way. And that's how he like puts the bed sheet on.
The duvet cover, which, to be fair, he does.
It's very
the most
playful,
effective way for putting a duvet cover on,
and it's very cute. It's very cute and playful, but then we're like,
the situation.
No, but then, and all of it's playful and cute, and she's fine with it. But then she's like, okay, I'm going to bed. There's just this long pause of them just staring at each other.
Yeah,
because he is kind of expecting something. I think it's like 30 seconds, which 30 seconds of silence is a very long time.
I don't think it was 30 seconds. I think it was like 5 seconds. But 5 seconds
either way,
of awkward silence is excruciating.
And then he's like, oh, I guess I should leave.
Yeah. We don't know.
Spoiler alert, he quickly gets his head bashed in.
Yes. Oh, God, his death is so great.
He deserves it.
Does he? We don't know. We don't know.
No, because he didn't take her concerns. And then he just goes, they go further into depths of the basement. I thought you were just
talking because he's a dick.
No, he seems like a lovely guy. But then she's like, I literally found a hidden wall with a bed and a camera, and he's in a bucket. And she's like, well, we need to get the fuck out of here. And he's like, well, I need to see it. I don't believe you. And he's like, you stay here and then we'll leave together. But then he finds a second hidden passage that you go way down into it, where there's cages and dog bowls.
So just to be clear, if this were me in his position,
get the fuck out of there.
I might have checked out the first room.
Maybe, but not the second room.
If I'm checking out the rape room and being like, holy shit, and then I find a hidden passage there, I'm fucking bouncing.
Yes.
I'm bouncing so hard.
No, he keeps going.
Yeah, like an idiot. So we never really learn anything about him except that he's a horror movie idiot.
Yeah, but there's even this clever spot where she tries to figure out where he went. Then she investigates, hears him calling for help, and she sees the further stairs going down, but there's no light switch. She sets up a mirror to project light down the stairs.
Yeah, from
just
the
showing
window.
that this person's not just being an idiot.
Right.
I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't have gone down there. But
oh, fuck no.
But she at least is like, I'm not going down there in the dark.
Yeah, hell no.
And then it's him crawling around, freaking out, being like, there's something else down here. And one thing I don't understand, too, is that he's like, no, don't go back the way we came in. And then his head gets bashes in by an unknown force. And it's a great scene.
It's a great scene.
Then that's when they go, Justin Long.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what his thinking was there. Maybe he was...
I think the monster came from that direction originally.
Yeah.
Because we never figure out the full scope of these tunnels.
Right. The tunnels could
We
be
know it's
fairly
long.
extensive. We know that somebody's spent a long time building this.
Yeah.
Super creepy. And then we have Justin Long, who...
And then he's just in his convertible like... Do, 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 do.
being, as Justin Long is, the absolute best at being completely unlikable and just the guy that you really do want to get it in the horror movie. Because, God, I wonder if Justin Long is a douchebag in real life or if he's just really fucking
people
good
love
at playing
him.
it. But every time I see him in a movie, I'm like, I instantly know he's going to be the douchebag here.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's like.
Think of all the movies I've seen.
I mean,
all I think is Jeepers Creepers and Drag Me to Hell. And Drag Me to Hell, he's an asshole, but it's a casual asshole.
Yeah,
Because he gaslights her all the whole time.
Right.
Well, I guess it's not gaslighting.
She did kind of sound crazy.
He does. That is true, but he just treats her so poor, especially the family. Treats her so poor.
Katie pointed out to me that he's
the Apple guy.
That's what I was going to say. Katie pointed out to me that he's the Apple guy.
And that movie was sponsored by Apple.
Barbarian was?
Drag Me to Hell.
They
constantly have phones
right.
like as close to the screen as
well, he was also in that one Die Hard, the fourth Die Hard movie, where the whole idea was, John McClane is the old analog cop, and Justin Long's character is the new modern guy.
Oh, that's Kevin Smith
in
Die Hard 4.
I mean, Kevin Smith does have his appearance, and he is definitely
he's the computer guy.
But Justin Long's...
I don't remember Justin Long in that. Maybe he is. I don't know.
I mean, he's the guy that tags along with Bruce Willis the whole time.
I didn't like that movie.
And he's the one that's constantly like, you're out of touch. And
I've only seen it once, and I didn't like it.
I liked it fine, but I haven't seen it in 15 years, so I probably fucked up everything that I just said about it.
Anywho.
So yeah, Barbarian. Excellent fucking movie. It's funny because we're talking about how the director based it on this book about red flags, which makes me wonder.
He also said that he wasn't trying to make this like a social commentary film.
Well, he might not have tried, but holy shit, did he do it?
He admits that there is social commentary, but he says that wasn't the point. He just read this book and then was like, oh.
Yeah, whether he meant to or not, this whole movie is basically about toxic masculinity.
In different forms. Because also we haven't talked about Frank much, but AJ, while searching the tunnels, does find Frank, who's the guy who's been raping everybody and caused this incest woman, and he's dying.
I'm only laughing because of the hand gesture that Jessica just made while she was doing this.
Well, he's like dying, rotting in this cave with like tapes that are all listed as either descriptions and name. Like, there's even one that's...
They're just all his rape tapes.
Yeah, and one of them is even called the vomiting one.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
I saw, like, the blonde.
Yeah, so a lot of them have descriptions, and then a lot, like, physical descriptions, and then some of them are, like, the screamer, and there's, like, the vomiting one. But Justin Long is disgusted when he sees this, but the reality is he is just on the spectrums of rapists. They have things in common.
Right.
But also that this guy is like, who did all these horrible things, is kind of just become been succumbed to the underground tunnels, and he's just decaying in this bed. And then he kills himself when he's found out, which is kind of bullshit. Because that means he just gets away with everything the whole time. But Justin Long they make it seem like he has this redemption arc. Because he sees this and he's disgusted. And even in the club, when he's explaining to his friend what he did,
I do feel like he tries to play it
with
with a slight touch of remorse, but then goes immediately back into self-denial.
Well, I was going to say, so the club scene where his friend's like, tell me the truth, like what happened? And he's like, yeah, she was like saying no at first, but then she was like into it. And he's like, was she really? And he's like, no, she was really into it. But then when he walks away from talking to his friend, he does make a face that's kind of like,
Yeah.
did I actually rape this chick? And then he just decides to be like, nah, fuck that.
Yeah.
And then he sees all this, and then again is like, oh, also when he's in the pit, he has a conversation with Tess that he's kind of like, yeah, maybe I've been a selfish, shitty person. Maybe I should change.
Yeah. But then, there's this whole thing after he basically throws Tess to the wolves at the end.
Yeah.
And I love this scene. Hopefully you've all figured out that there's major spoilers going on, so I'm going to blow the total ending here for you.
We already did.
I guess we did. But so there's this great moment where you watch him talk himself back into being the good guy in his own mind.
Yeah.
Where he starts like, it was you or me. And really, it was kind of your fault anyway. And hey, I was trying to help you and you just slipped. And he just pushed her off this fucking tower.
But there's also a lot of themes.
Yeah. I mean, he literally threw her and yelled, go get her, or something like that, to the monsterish woman.
Yeah, because technically the monster woman is the major victim of this movie.
She is the greatest victim, but also the biggest threat. The biggest villain is Frank.
Yeah, but there is also a bunch of themes in this movie that are about just how, like, perception can fuck you up. So, because there's, like, scene when Tess first escapes. She is also black, but of a light. This is on purpose. I'm a white person. I understand, but this is part done on purpose in the movie. She is a lighter black person, but there is a dark black man who's clearly homeless running at her, being like, don't go in there, don't go in there. She runs back in the house and he's pounding on there like, get out of there. And she's terrified of him.
So the idea here being that, he's another red herring because he's actually probably the best person in the movie.
Yeah. So later he saves her and is like, yeah.
I told you not to go in there.
And he even said, like, when he sees the inbred woman is like, she's not the worst thing in there, referring to Frank, because she never sees Frank. Justin Long does, but she does not.
Right.
But then later, like, she calls the cops to be like, hey, all this stuff's going on. But because she just got out of this, like, pit, she's disheveled and dirty, and the cops come and they think she's just some other homeless person.
Yeah, it's kind of played out. They seem to think that she's on drugs.
Even though she's wearing business clothes. That's the thing that does, like, I'm like, she is wearing business clothes,
but they are filthy and torn up.
I know, but how many homeless people do you see in a collared shirt?
I've seen it.
Sure, but
I mean, not like super often, but
yeah, I'm just saying. It's usually a collared shirt with some sweats. She's wearing completely like dress clothes.
I have seen some dudes in full suits, not necessarily homeless, but just do way too many drugs one night, and they
it's called the 80s.
Fall into a fucking ditch or something, So they're walking out with like a filthy, torn up suit.
Sure. I'm just saying.
But
there's purposely set up this perception.
Right. So yes, here's my favorite part of the podcast where two suburban white folk try to talk about It
mattered. It's part of the movie.
No, it does. I'm just saying,
They purposely cast this chick who is a lighter color person of color.
No. I'm just
to have her be juxtaposed to the darker homeless person.
I am just acknowledging right now that as two suburban white people, this is way out of our realm of expertise.
But I think even one of the cops is black.
Sure.
And again, I think that's on purpose.
I think so as well.
That's all I would say about the race in this movie.
I know.
But I do think it's intentional.
Oh, I'm about to say one more thing about
I was going to say, because also the director's white.
So I do remember during the George Floyd protests, I remember a lot of people talking about how in a lot of instances, black cops could be harder
because they have something to
on
prove.
Black folk because they have something to prove. And
with drinking your gin and juice in South Central, not that movie, but the movie that's parodying.
Oh, you're talking about Don't Be a Menace.
Yeah.
Don't Be a Menace to South Central
but that's
while
the
drinking
comedy.
Your juice in the hood.
That's a comedy.
Yes.
Boys in the Hood.
Boy, I really should have known that one.
But you know what I'm talking
movie.
about? But there's a whole thing that the black
yeah.
cops are the worst because they have something to prove.
Yeah. Boy, it is really weird trying to discuss social issues
when you're a white person.
Not when you're a white person, but like when they're
I feel
so
particularly when you're a white person in the suburbs. We're currently sitting in $1 million house.
Right. So what I was going to say was specifically, it's always weird to talk about social issues like this because they're so far removed from me. I grew up in the suburbs. I am as fucking white as white can get. I can't even fucking go in the sun properly.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm sitting in $1 million house that I would not have even been able to bought on my own. Yeah. Like I have as much privilege as anyone who isn't like filthy rich can have, with the possible exception of, you know, being fat. That's not fun. That's a thing that takes a few privileges away, but it's pretty low on the scale of privileges to be taken away. So, you know, it's difficult, not like unpleasant difficult, but it's complicated to try to understand issues that don't affect you at all.
Yeah, they're upsetting to us, but they're not something that directly affect us.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, there's a thing that I know you've heard me say, like being a good person isn't a state, it's a journey. It's something that you always have to work on.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, this is super interesting. So part of the book's point and the director, the whole thing about being overly nice, they're like, being nice isn't a character trait. It's something you choose to do.
Yes.
So if you choose to overly do it, that's when it's like a concern. So I'm saying that just kind of relates.
I think that's the difference between niceness and kindness.
Yeah.
Kindness
but also,
is a character trait.
I don't think there's just a good person or a bad person. It's choices you make.
I think there's some choices you can make that can make you irredeemable.
And this movie shows that.
Right.
With Justin Long.
In various degrees. Because what was his name?
That's why I just keep saying them by their AJ.
No. Frank.
Oh, Frank.
Frank is
just a piece of shit.
An unredeemable monster.
Yeah, so AJ and Frank are actually very similar, except for Frank knows who he is and it's just like, I don't give a fuck. This is what I'm doing. AJ chooses to pretend he's not that person.
Right.
But he is still treating women similarly.
You know, the interesting thing is,
and then
thinking about it now, you know, you mentioned earlier that it's frustrating that Frank gets away with it.
Yeah,
isn't ever punished.
Yeah.
I feel like he makes a hell for himself, though, because he lives in a fucking underground tunnel in absolute squalor.
And the inbred monster woman is also afraid of him. Because when Justin Long finds Frank's room, that's when she goes away.
Yes.
Because she also is like, though, okay, this is nitpicking. I don't understand the monster, how that would have came. Because we know this happened in the 80s, and now it's like 30 years later, but we show all these tapes. He's kidnapped all these people. So it was just one person he's had a kid with and kept having kids with, and then, like, you know what I mean? How long does a kid take to grow a kid? I'm just saying, if we're actually thinking about the timeline, it would take a very long time to create an inbred woman that looks like that.
I think that this is kind of going back to the earlier point of like movies don't show everything.
Sure. I'm just saying we know there's 50 years.
We actually don't know that the woman that we see him kidnap is the one who gives birth to the woman that we deal with in this movie.
That's not the point, but it's clearly supposed to be some multiple generations of inbreeding, but it's only been 50 years. You can't have that many generations to create that level of inbreeding.
I mean, actually, if you think about when women technically become fertile during puberty, you can.
No, not really.
I mean, she could potentially be like 4th, 5th generation person.
Not really. When do you think women are able to carry kids?
I mean, it varies from woman to woman, but some girls, early teens.
Sure, some.
So we see him kidnapping in the 80s.
Yeah.
It is clearly not his first time. He's been practicing.
No, but he doesn't have the tunnel yet.
He does?
It's clear that he's making the tunnel when everyone's leaving, and that's why he's staying. Because there's literally a line of like... Oh.
Yeah. But we know that he's kidnapped other women before. He has this down to an art.
Yeah.
It
doesn't matter anyway.
But point being, if we assume that took place during the early 80s, that's...
I don't believe it's the early 80s. But again, 40 years, that's at most 3.
Yeah.
And then also, where's the mother now?
That's a good question.
Either way, it's a good movie. You should check it out.
Yeah, go watch it.
It has a lot to do with...
It has a lot to say, even if a lot of it's inadvertent.
It has a lot to do with gentrification. It has a lot to do with race issues, subtly, or just more perceptions of people than race issues. But then a lot to do. I mean, a lot of people could say it has to do with how women feel about men, but it's just red flags.
Yeah.
Red flags, and also with Justin Long's character about how people will just choose to delusion themselves to be the good guy, because they often show him just his facial expression going like, maybe I am a piece of shit, and then him choosing just to be like, nah.
Yeah.
And,
but, you know, he also has that like that rich white male privilege where he gets to make that decision as to whether he's a good guy or not.
Sure. But I want to make sure that we make it clear that this isn't just a big social commentary movie. It's also a B movie. The monster is very B movie-ish.
The monster is...
where she's just like... constantly. And a lot of the gore, like the violence that happens is...
so good.
It's such a mix of like... Actually, I know some people don't like it for that reason, because it seems like it has something to say, but then it's also just trash.
I love that kind of thing.
No, I do too, but I'm just saying, we've been talking about a lot of the social stuff and all this, but I'm like, no, it's also mixed with a trash movie.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's so satisfying. We watched Justin Long get his head just fucking crushed. Like a fucking...
He gets no, you mean Bill Skarsgård.
Oh, no, we watched Bill Skarsgård get his head fucking crushed. We watched Justin Long get his, like...
Eyes dug out. And this monster woman is a sympathetic character.
She is. And I think it's important to note that she's not a monster or a villain. She's just the product of an indeterminate timeline of inbreeding, abuse, neglect, and... But, you know, if you go into this movie...
trash cinema that makes you think, here you go.
Yeah. If you go into this movie wanting gore, you're going to get some of it. If you go into this movie wanting dark atmosphere, you're going to get a fuck of a lot of it.
If you want to laugh.
If you want to laugh, you're going to get some of that. And if you want social commentary, you're going to get plenty of that too.
You can ignore it also.
You can. It's a great... I think it's one of those movies where...
You want to turn off your brain or you want to think, it's there.
You can approach it however you want. Yeah. And that's a rare thing, honestly.
I give it a 9 out of 10 because the ending where the chick jumps out, get thrown off the building first, and then somehow the monster ends up underneath her. I'm sorry, I can't let that go.
Have we been rating these?
No, but I am right at the moment.
Okay.
I'm just saying that one part.
I'm gonna...
She gets flung off of that tower way before the monster jumps.
That's true. But you know, I think the idea is that the monster tried to maneuver itself under her to save her.
I don't care.
Anyway, great movie. I'm going to give it, I don't know, fuck you, Justin Long rating. I'm sure he's a perfectly nice guy, but man, I always hate him.
He likes Mac. No.
What was that?
Is he? He likes Mac. No, I'm joking.
He plays unlikable people so fucking well.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to our first pee break.
I'm going to get a pee and get another beer if that's okay. Thank you for listening to Streaming Screams Podcast. You can follow us at our socials at Streaming Screams Pod for Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and SoundCloud.
You can also follow us on TikTok or on the dreaded Twitter/X at Screams Pod. Thank you again for listening. We hope you're enjoying yourselves. Jessica, are you enjoying yourself?
Absolutely.
All right then, on to the next part of the show.
I have no idea how to pronounce anything. All
right. So now that we're back from the pee break, it is time to discuss 1981's Possession, directed by... I'm going to fuck this up.
We're Americans.
Boy, are we ever.
I'm just saying, we don't know how to pronounce
Andreze?
I'm assuming that last J is silent.
That would make sense.
Andreze?
Andreze Zalowski.
That sounds right.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So now we've got 1981's Possession, directed by Andreze Zalowski, starring Isabel Adjani as Anna and Sam Neill as Mark. I have in my notes here that there are 2 words to encapsulate this entire movie: miserable and horny.
Yeah, I find that this movie is really hard to give a synopsis of, because it's mostly people like arguing and neglecting their child.
Yeah, so it kind of focuses on this weird love triangle. Boy, it starts off really hostile right from the beginning, where Mark, Sam Neill's character, comes home to his wife Anna.
Well, she's already like, I don't want to be with you anymore. And so
but they're
he's like,
discussing this in bed, like clearly post-coital.
I just watched it this morning. No, at first, they're just on the street. He just got on a cab.
Yeah,
and he's like, should I go to a hotel? And she's like, well, our son knows you're going to be here.
Right.
So, and he's like, well, I can take him to the zoo or something.
But they still clearly do some angry divorce hate fucking.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I'm only speaking from my own experience, but I almost always, this is like at least bare minimum, like a week of fucking after you break up.
Okay, so this is going to get into something that I was going to say probably later on, but I'll say it right now. The movie is dealing with a marriage falling apart and basically a divorce. But the whole film basically reminds me of a breakup at 17 years old. Everything is so intense.
But they're like in their 30s.
Yeah, but they're in their 30s. But everything is so intense.
I actually looked up.
So
Sam
overdone.
Neill was 35 when this came out.
You know, weirdly enough, he looked younger.
I know. That's why I looked it up.
That's wild. But yeah, the whole thing reminds me of a high school breakup. Yeah,
it's insane.
Everything is so
dramatic,
over dramatic. So overdone.
I've been in these conversations.
Yeah, so have I. Literally in high school.
Yeah,
though.
But there's scenes where like the scene of him tearing apart the restaurant is less impactful to me than some of the conversations they're having.
Yes. Although I think that the tearing apart of the restaurant isn't supposed to be super impactful in and of itself, but it actually shows this weird pattern where their personal chaos is spiraling out into the world around them.
Sure. I'm just saying what made me personally more upset is them just screaming at each other.
Right.
I'm like, I have been here.
So the first thing that happens is Sam Neill comes home.
He's been gone for like a year, I think.
He and his wife are clearly not on the same page. She's not happy. She's found another dude.
Oh, it's important to say this is during like the Berlin Wall.
Yes.
And they don't actively talk about the Berlin Wall, but the Berlin Wall is featured.
But the East Berlin soldiers are clearly watching them fall apart this whole time.
I think those are actually soldiers.
Oh, you think so?
It was filmed by the Berlin Wall.
That does make sense.
I think those are just actively soldiers. Because when I read it was filmed by the Berlin Wall, and then they're like, they close up on soldiers and then back out and it's hella far away. And I'm like, I think they're just filming actual soldiers.
That's funny that they worked the East German army into, who are probably just watching because there's a movie being made, but they're like, no, they're watching this couple go to shit.
But the wall's kind of just a parallel to like the divide between them. But I can't say what this movie's actually about. I've read that this is an allegory for divorce. I'm like, it can't be an allegory when that's actually what's happening.
Yeah.
That's not an allegory.
Right.
That's what's happening. It's not an allegory.
I think that the creature is supposed to be an allegory for...
Okay, well, that doesn't come to much later, and I have a lot of confusion about that. Because, let me tell you, the first time I watched this, I thought there was multiple creatures. Because there was the squid thing on the bed, and then there was the skin dude behind the door, and she's like, he's not finished.
Yeah, which I think just meant like he was in like a larval stage.
Yeah, but that made me think there was two different things. But then they make it seem like the squid thing is what comes at the end, which we'll talk about later.
Okay, so, back to the story,
quote unquote.
Yeah, this movie is very much more of one of those movies. It's like an experience more than a story.
Oh, well, also let me say, I don't know how you feel. I love this movie. I fucking love this movie, and I don't know how I haven't seen it before. It's not a movie I'm going to watch regularly, but I actually do think this movie's amazing. Maybe it's also, though, I think I've been in a lot more toxic relationships than you have.
True.
And let me tell you, this just embodies like experiences I've been through.
I think that
I've literally had somebody back themselves in the corner and cut themselves.
Yeah.
Which happens in this movie.
I actually really like this movie, but I love it in the way that I like a lot of No Gaspers movies.
Gasper No.
Gasper No. Okay.
Gasper No Way.
No Way?
I believe. I could be wrong.
I like it.
Get in the comments.
I like it in the way that I like a lot of Gasper Noé's movies where I thoroughly enjoy them. I think they're amazing. I don't really ever want to watch them again.
Oh, I've seen Climax multiple times.
I actually do kind of want to watch that again. But I don't ever want to see Irreversible again.
Oh, I don't like that movie.
Enter the Void.
That's also not a great movie.
I liked it.
Okay.
But
I was just going to say, since we're talking about Gasper Noé, just a side comment, which leave this fucking in. Don't cut it out. He clearly wants to fuck his sister. I don't know if he has a sister, but he wants to fuck her. Because
totally.
Into the Void and Climax, there are major plot points about a guy wanting to fuck his sister.
Yes. Well, and in climax, the guy fucks his sister.
No, he doesn't. He makes a point to when she wakes up the next day being like, nothing happened.
Yeah, but we see it happening.
No, you don't. You don't actually. No, anyways, it doesn't matter. Just side point. Gaspar Noé wants to fuck his sister. I don't know if that sister exists, but if it does, he wants to fuck her.
Well, I mean, it's kind of similar to, who's that director that I love? Willem Wendig Refn, who clearly wants to fuck a dead body. There is so much necrophilia in his movies.
Well, here's a reference for the children. And when I mean children, I mean people in their 20s. Trash Taste Gaunt is a single child, and he's really into incest porn. And he's like, because I'm desperate for a sibling. And I'm like, but you want to fuck your sibling? Like, what the fuck?
What?
You know Trash Taste?
Yeah, kind of.
But you know what it is.
Yeah. I mostly
very
just know
popular.
it. I mostly just know
Gaunt,
it from
the
hanging out with you.
The Asian one, the Thai guy.
Yeah.
So Connor has a mommy fetish. So he likes MILF hentai.
Not into it, but okay.
Well, it's not going to get any better. Joey, the anime man, is into lolly hentai. And
Even worse.
And then Gaunt is into incest stuff. And he says, because I've never had any siblings and I'm desperate for siblings. And I'm like, that doesn't explain anything.
Can't these guys just be into like normal gross things like piss play?
No, but it's hentai. They're talking about hentai. They're not talking about regular porn. They're talking about hentai.
I mean, they're still jerking off to it, presumably. Isn't that what people do with hentai?
I mean, I know that I'm the rarity here, but I did not. And you know, I have incest stuff, but not. I don't have any lolly stuff. That's a line for me. I don't care if they're supposed to be 500 years old, but they look 5. That's a line.
That's boy. We could do a whole fucking episode of this show on that whole bunch of bullshit.
And maybe we will as a special if we ever get popular enough to have a Patreon.
Oh yeah, you guys will have to pay for the episode where we're talking about cartoon incest.
Oh man, or
no, I have a lot to say
I've
about
said
the type
to
of
you
people.
And my husband, I was like, the thing I'm grateful for the most with my age is that I continue to be attracted to people my own age.
Yes.
God damn. Anyways.
I have a lot to say about that whole trope about 600-year-old demons in the body of a little girl.
Don't care what your age is.
You're just coming up with an excuse for your fucking pedophilia.
Yeah.
Don't. Just don't.
Anyways.
Stop watching it. Hey, weebs, train yourself to like better things. Be a better human.
Yeah, be into those giant titties that they like give themselves black eyes and stuff.
Yeah, man. Nothing wrong with a good set of bolt-ons, but leave the fucking child demons alone.
Yeah. Chicks with dicks, into it. That's adult fun.
Super into it.
Anyways, this movie is so you don't like it as much as me.
No, I like it a lot, but like there's
I wouldn't want to watch it a bunch, but
there's movies that I love that make me feel bad.
I didn't think it dragged as much as you did. I did the first.
I didn't say that it dragged.
No, you told me that when you rewatched it, that this movie goes on forever.
I
thought the first time we watched it, every scene went on forever, but the second time I watched it didn't.
I didn't mean that it drags. I meant that it never fucking ends in the sense that like there's 8 points where they could have cut the story and cut to credits and it would have made total sense and been fine.
Oh, I don't agree. I think there's arguments that could have been cut shorter, but then also that's just not realistic of like the tone of this movie because when you're breaking up, everything just goes on forever. And there is just so much intensity. To me, this is like a 17-year-old trying to break up.
Yeah, and it's one of those movies that like it's an
experience, not more than a movie.
Yeah, and it's very artsy in a lot of ways that
it's also not that artsy.
Well, no, it's not artsy in the sense that you don't have like a bunch of weird angles and colors and stuff like that. But like, who meets up with somebody they're breaking up with at a cafe and sit at 2 tables next to each other, facing away from each other to have their argument? That is very much a look how far apart they are thing, not an actual human conversation thing.
It's a fake wall.
Yeah. And the guy that she has fallen in love with, Heinrich.
Oh my God.
That guy just wants to have sex with literally everyone and everything.
Is he not trying to have sex with Mark?
I am fairly certain that Mark wanted to have sex with him too.
Until they start fighting.
I think that the fight was a replacement for a gay sex scene.
Yeah.
I think,
and there was the awkward moment, but also there's an awkward moment where the mom shows up and he's like, does she fucking live here? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, was she here when you were fucking my wife? And he's like, of course. And I'm like, the mom is only there to make him more of like a perfect man. Mm-hmm. He's cultured. He's strong. He's not my type, but he's supposed to be the sexy, suave man. He's not even like...
His mind is thoroughly expanded.
Yeah, he's not even like threatened by the actual husband. He's like, oh.
Yeah, the husband who came over basically to kick his ass.
And then he's like, yes, of course my mother is here. And it's like, oh, well, he actually takes care of his family. He's supposed to be the perfect man, but it's in such a way. Oh, God. And I know this is kind of a jump, but then also when he finds out that Anna, spoiler alert, is also fucking someone else that we don't know, then he's just like all over the hallway.
This is one of those moments that...
And I know that sounded like nonsense.
It would have made a lot more sense.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I know that the noise I just made sounded like nonsense. If you see the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He literally can't stand still. He's just everywhere, and it's like, what is happening?
He's like rolling down the wall of the hallway.
While like still saying these like Shakespearean lines. And it's like, what the...
He's basically a philosopher that's done a lot of hallucinogens, a lot of psychedelics. But yeah, so I have a theory. I have a hypothesis that the fight between them, I think there may have initially intended to be a sex scene.
Yeah.
The fight is clearly them fucking, and it's so erotic the way it's done. But
because there's a point where Henrik punches out Sam Neill, and then he like picks him up and basically cradles him.
Yes.
And then Sam Neill slowly starts like choking him out.
Yeah,
but there is a moment where he's like cradling him lovingly.
Yeah, yeah, and even Mark talks all throughout the movie about how Heinrich is a superior person in every way, and he's not being facetious. Like, he loves him, but Heinrich is boinking his wife, so it's a complicated thing.
I do like that the wife instantly admits this. There's a phone call, I believe it's a phone call, where he asks her hella questions, and she is dead honest.
Actually in person too. There's
numerous sure, but
scenes.
The first conversation they have is on the phone.
Yeah,
and she's dead honest.
So this is another one of those.
And then they have the conversation what you were talking about, like backside, and where they further go into it. But the whole time,
they're like back to back.
But the whole time she's dead honest.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm fucking him. Yes, I like sex more. But she doesn't say that he's better at sex. She just says, I get more out of it.
So there's another aspect of this that really reminds me of like the whole like 17-year-old breakup thing. I don't know if you ever went through anything like this, but when I was in high school, there was an incident where me and my a very good friend of mine, I think it was my girlfriend, started trying to hook up with his girlfriend, which was weird enough. And then his girlfriend really overcomplicated shit by telling him that she thought that she was falling in love with me. And I'm watching this movie and I'm like, yeah, boy, this sounds about right. Because me and my friend did not get into a physical fight, but there was definitely that night where we were sitting there and had this real dynamic going of, boy, I love you, but I want to fucking kill you right now.
What the fuck is going on right now?
Yeah. So this is such a hyper hormonal.
It is, but like I said, for me, all the conversations are way more upsetting than the actual violence that you see.
It also
there's murders that happen that are just like inconsequential.
There's also a lot. I am not exactly what I would call the most experienced drug user in the world. There's a lot of shit in this movie that made me think of drugs and withdrawals.
Sure.
Like Sam
him
Neill,
just wriggling in the bed, just like
Yeah, like I was watching that and I was like, every depiction I've seen of heroin withdrawals looks like this. And so is like love supposed to be the drug here? You know? The acting in this movie is top notch.
Yeah.
From absolutely everybody. I will say Isabella Adjani, amazing. And I hope I pronounced that right.
I think the J might be.
Well, but there's a D and then a J.
Yeah.
So there is definitely a concept.
Adani.
Adani?
I could be wrong.
Yeah.
We're Americans and we're trying our best.
Yeah. So I will say that we are American. We're white and suburban.
We're trying our best.
We're trying our best.
Feel free to correct us, but don't be mean.
Yes. Actually, don't just feel free to correct us. Please do.
I do think there's an importance for the kid being there, but that's the one thing which I wish they cut because I don't feel like it adds a ton. And it is like, I do like, though, that they clearly are neglecting their kid. But then there's a scene where it's like, no, this kid has clearly been alone for days, if not weeks.
Yeah.
It's just...
But he also seems to know what's going on.
Yeah, but...
More than we do.
Yes. But it's just they acknowledge that this kid's being neglected, but it's still kind of gloss over.
Yeah.
Like they acknowledge it. They're like, how long have you been alone? And then Sam Neill, Mark takes over more, but it's still not.
But that's sort of the thing is we follow this whole movie from Mark's perspective, and he knows that the kid is being neglected, but he's not doing better. So we keep seeing the kid being neglected.
He hasn't been there the whole time. What is he supposed to fucking do?
I mean, he goes right to neglecting the kid when he gets there.
I know,
though.
we literally get to a point where the kid's like covered in jam and it's implied he's been alone for weeks.
Okay, so here's another thing. There's a few moments between Mark and the kid Bob. There's a whole thing about kids named Bob in horror. Anyway.
Well, also, I'm like, is that more of an 80s thing? I just, something about a kid named Bob. It's just like...
Yeah, I mean, it does seem sort of weird, but like I knew Bobs when I was a kid.
Yeah, but they're usually Bobby when they're young.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's the weird. I was trying to place like what weirded me out about this.
Yeah, it's because they usually, as a child, you're Bobby. So, but then it is constantly you're like, Bob, what are we going to do with Bob?
So there is even, and this is unpleasant, there is, in my opinion, even a weird sexual aspect between Mark and Bob.
Okay. There's this very specific thing I want to talk about, so I want to hear what you would say.
So there's a very specific moment where he's helping Bob get undressed for a bath.
Yes.
He sort of puts his hands around Bob's rib cage.
Okay.
And looks at him lovingly.
He seems like to me he's inspecting him because of what he knows is going on.
Sure.
So in the situation, it does seem weird and like it could be sexual, but I'm also like, let's give the benefit of the doubt. It looks like
he does the exact same thing with his wife.
So at first it's like he's inspecting him for bruises or signs of stuff. But then yes, there's like a scene 5 minutes later where he literally does the exact same thing with his wife.
Yeah.
And that's when I'm like, ugh.
So yeah, and then so this fucking love triangle goes on. Everybody's in love with Heinrich, but also Sam Neill kind of wants to kill Heinrich.
Sure.
And he eventually does in the most disgusting way possible.
What, in a toilet?
In a toilet that he just threw up in.
Okay.
So we have this whole thing where the wife is fucking this weird octopus creature.
Okay, I have a lot. Like, again, to me, it seemed like there was an octopus creature, and then she killed... Oh, okay, we forgot about this. So, Mark hires a private investigator.
Oh, the world's worst fucking detective.
He's literally running after her 2 feet behind.
Yeah, and
then runs up the stairs a little bit further and does... I don't know if you can hear that, but literally taps his feet to act like he's running further. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, he is a terrible detective, and it's great when he dies because
she murders him. And then it's later somebody else comes up and he's like behind the door, but like decongealing. So I thought he was turning into another octopus lover thing.
I thought so too at first, and then we see his body chopped up in the fridge.
No, I thought that was the second guy. There was a second guy that was a private investigator that was looking for him.
Oh, yeah, his boyfriend.
It was a boyfriend? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
This movie's very confusing because it's a lot of just yelling.
It's a lot of yelling. It's very convoluted, and weirdly enough, the whole like supernatural aspect is sort of the least important part. I mean, until it presumably leads to the apocalypse at the end.
Is that okay? Let me ask an important question. Why is this movie called Possession? Who's being possessed?
Anna is possessed by Mark, and she's so.
Or is he possessed by her?
So in my opinion, the reason
I don't
it's
feel
called
like there's
possession,
a possession going on.
there's not a demonic possession going on, but in
No,
my opinion,
I never said anything about a demon, motherfucker.
so I think it's possession, the noun, as in
I think it's a love
Mark-
interest, but it would be more him.
Mark treats her as a possession.
Yeah.
And
Because
he
the
and
whole
Heinrich
thing-
fight over her as if she is a prize to be won. She is
As
the
men do.
possession. She is not possessed.
But then she does. So the first half of this movie is very much Sam Neill is the asshole. But
Well,
then,
I mean, everybody's the asshole in this movie.
sure, but he's
The asshole.
yeah. But then it's like, wait a minute, is she crazy?
Well, she sure seems to be in the world's hottest freak out in the subway.
Okay, so what do you? So there's a lot of interpretations of that. Isabella
Isabella Adjani as Anna.
Adani. I think it's Adani. I'm not sure. Adani or Adani. Isabella. She says that she's aborting hope. That's her interpretation of it.
Yes.
Well, some people say it's birth of evil, but she says it's an abortion of hope.
Well, she says miscarriage of hope.
Yes, sorry. Oh, actually, medically it's the same thing.
Sure.
The medical. I'm just saying the medical term is
Medically, it's the same thing, but there is an intent behind abortion.
Sure,
There's no intent behind miscarriage.
yes. But
So
anyways,
that's-
but there is a difference of saying it's a birth of evil or a miscarriage of hope. Which do you think it is? I think it doesn't matter.
I think that the entire point is that she has been pushed to her absolute limit.
Yeah.
And she is losing her shit in the subway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and again, 17-year-old breakup. I remember when I've had friends or when I have just like
Just reminded her they're actually in their 30s and late 20s. But
but like there's been moments where people I know or myself have just been like in the woods screaming because you don't know what the fuck else to do. You're just so overwhelmed with your own ridiculous emotions. And then you can look back on it a year later and you're like, oh, that's so embarrassing.
we know I've done some other things years ago.
Yeah. So I don't even know that the like liquid that was coming out of her at the end of that scene was literal.
I don't think so.
I think that I think that the whole point, and it might have been her miscarrying hope in the sense of like she realizes she's not getting out of this situation.
Yeah.
But I think that it is everything that happens in that scene is her just unable to cope with this shit anymore.
Sure.
Justifiably losing her shit, and then the miscarriage of hope is just her realizing she's not getting out of this. This is it.
Yeah.
This is what her life is now.
But then, so the biggest left turn is like, one, we already know at this point that there's a doppelganger of her that's the teacher.
Yes.
But it's implied that it's just Sam Neill, Marks, reflecting his attraction onto everybody.
Yes.
To saying they look like her. He's just comparing women to Anna.
Yeah, because it's the same actress, but like
it's the exact
different
same
wig.
actress. No, he even says, like, what the fuck is this? This is a joke. You're wearing a wig. And she's like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
But even he asks his son, because he starts a relationship with this teacher, and asks the son, who's prettier? And they're like, Mom, which a son would obviously say. But
Of
he's
course.
like, I agree. But they're the same person.
Right.
But is it supposed to be the same person, or is it just be so? Because what makes it confusing is that the alien monster does become Sam Neill.
Yes.
So there is a doppelganger aspect. So is she a doppelganger? So okay, this is what I wonder. What came first? The alien squid thing, did it make a doppelganger of Anna and then infiltrate her relationship and then made a doppelganger of Sam Neill, aka Mark? Or is the teacher irrelevant and the squid thing became Mark because of Anna's obsession, right? Because also there's a scene before all that where Mark blows up the apartment where the squid thing is. So how does this run?
Which again leads to this whole thing where their chaos spills out everywhere. Because remember, the one person who witnesses that is laughing her ass off and being like, hell yeah, she could have been fucking killed by that shit.
Oh my God. We haven't even mentioned Margie.
Oh, Margit?
Yeah, that is Anna's best
Margie.
friend who hates Mark, but
And
then
yet really wants to have sex with him
Yeah.
and kind of seems to be in love with him.
no, and then like when she finds out he's going back to Anna, she like passes out and freaks out. There's so much horniness. It's everyone wants to fuck everyone.
Yeah, you know, this whole
Everyone
movie,
hates each other, but everyone wants to fuck. I
this
guess
whole
that
movie,
is kind of realistic.
This whole movie could have been like resolved with a giant like orgy.
Key party.
What was that?
Key party.
Not even a key party. Just get everybody in the same room and let them pound it out real angrily.
Unrelated. I asked my mom to. I
really hope my mom doesn't ever listen to this.
Well, I hung out with my mom today, and I was talking about how Della's house looks like it was a swinger house, and my mom's like, "No, that's what it looked like in the '70s." And I was like, "I don't know. I think a lot of key parties happened there." And then I was like, "Mom, do you know what a key party is?" And I explained it to her, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I knew what that was." And I was like, "Well, the whole point is because you know what the point of a key party is?
Yeah,
not to fuck other women." The point of a key party is you have a group of people who fuck each other, but you can't get jealous because you're not like, oh, you're targeting my wife.
Right.
Because it's random whose wife you get.
Yeah.
And my mom, I could see my mom was like, oh, my dad's like.
See, I think they should have just done a fucking naked conga through this, man. Just really angry orgy would have solved everybody's problems.
I just feel like a Hitachi would have been the... Sam Neill before he went. So it's implied that he's a spy or something.
I think soldier.
Yeah, but the fact that she didn't know what he exactly did, I think, is why they are implying it's a spy. Also, everything I've read about it is like, since they're so vague, that's what makes it seem like he was a spy. It doesn't matter. Either way,
I'm going to disagree with it.
If you're gonna go away for like over a year, give him a friend.
Yeah.
Give your lover a friend.
I'm going to say I don't think he was a spy. And the reason I don't think that is because I feel like he would have been a lot better at finding out the truth himself and wouldn't have needed to hire the world's worst detective. He also probably would have been able to tell right away that this guy was the worst detective in the world.
Why don't you just hire your government friend? You're right.
Or you know how to, if you're a spy, you know how to tell people yourself without being seen.
Well, just hire another spy.
Yeah.
You got friends. You're right.
Yeah.
He's not a spy. He's a loser.
Oh, also.
Poor Bob, though.
Also, totally beats his wife in a very uncomfortable scene.
And then when they fight again, is like, are you afraid I'm going to get angry and beat you again?
And she's like, no. But
I'm going to say the answer is yes.
Yeah, but again, this was another scene where they're like not talking to each other, but they're having the same conversation.
Yeah.
Because she's like in a trance doing the dishes, and he's angrily being dramatic in the doorway, facing again away from her because they cannot have more than 2 minutes looking at each other.
I don't even know. This movie, I think, is only a horror movie because it can't be categorized anywhere else.
I will say this. Watching this movie makes me feel bad. It doesn't make me feel scared, but it makes me feel bad.
The first time we were watching this, the whole time, I was like, oh, yeah, this reminds me of being with my worst relationship.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, yeah, I've had lots of... It doesn't matter what they're saying, just everything that's happening and the sentiment and the...
Just the unending chaos and the confusion between hate and love and lust.
Yeah. And a lot of it is like their actions are overblown, and some of those you wouldn't do, but it's like you want to in those situations, you know? Mm-hmm. It's just, yeah. But that's also why I don't like when people are like, this is an allegory for breaking up. No.
It's a
they
breakup.
Are breaking up. What is the allegory if that's what's actually happening? It's just at an extreme level. It's the squid monster and the doppelgangers where that's what confuses me. Watching it twice quickly in a row where I'm like, that's where I'm like, there's something else going on that I don't know how to play. And then you say the apocalypse happens at the end. I think that's just a bombing, but I don't know. Yeah, a bunch of air raids go off at the end. And they focus on Anna Doppelganger, who was the teacher, with Bob because Mark and Anna are already dead.
But remember, Bob immediately runs in and drowns himself.
It's very quick. You don't know if he drowns himself or
they let that camera linger on him for a long time.
Well, maybe this is just me being morbid, but it takes like 11 minutes.
To drown? No, if you inhale water, it goes a lot quicker.
It wasn't 4 minutes.
Sure, but this is movie magic, not...
Yeah, but... okay.
weird true
Yeah, which
crime obsessed.
No, we've already
magic.
talked about that, but it still reminds me of like being little kids being taught if there's like a bomb or a nuclear war attack that you like cover your head under your desk. Guess what? It's not going to do jack shit for you. That's just to make you like not run around and freak out. So I wonder were kids at that time taught a similar thing, like go into the bathtub?
Yes.
So did he actually kill himself, or was he just doing a safety thing that now looks weird?
So you're supposed to get into the bathtub. You're not supposed to like lay on your face, and you're certainly not supposed to lay on your face in a bathtub full of water.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, is it now in current context look different than it did when it was made?
Maybe, but
Because even if we're talking about like if they thought it was nuclear fallout, did they think water would protect you? All I'm saying is we could make being a modern interpretation versus on when it came out.
maybe. But I again
don't
get
think-
the idea that he knows more about what's going on.
I don't
Than we
think
do.
it's fully implied that he killed himself.
Because he also does it before the sirens start.
I just
He
don't
starts
think.
running before they do.
I just don't. I think it's iffy on what that means, and it's easier to make an assumption based on modern times versus 81.
Maybe, but that's how I interpret it. I think he kills himself.
I know. I actually read that was the thing before I watched it the second time, and watching the second time, I'm like, I don't know, because he keeps moving his feet around like he's not. I don't know, and not in a panicked way. So that's why I was like, I don't know, man. He might be doing. I mean, I guess we should have looked it up before. Too late. Don't do it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Stop me.
It's
I do what I want.
It's a weird movie.
It is a weird movie, and you know, and it's one of those movies where, in a lot of ways, things like this, whatever they are, don't necessarily matter to the point.
Well, I also purposely wanted to do this as a second movie, even though we didn't talk about it, because I'm like, people will be less interested in this movie than Barbarian, because it's definitely like, is it horror? I don't know where else to put it, but it's a art house movie.
I mean,
for
it's
sure.
definitely an art house movie.
It's so funny.
I would say it's very much existential horror.
I watched a YouTube video about this, and it started with somebody watching in their bedroom the subway scene, and she's just like, "Wah!" Then their partner comes in and goes, "What are you watching?" And they're like, "It's art." And I'm like, that kind of sums up this movie for me.
I've been there before. I have absolutely had moments where like somebody, you know, a girlfriend or my mom or somebody has walked in and I've been watching something wild and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's art. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
Oh God, who was it that walked in on me watching The Holy Mountain? And I'm just like, just don't fucking ask, man. I realize that they're like inhaling poop fumes right now. Just don't worry about it.
It's gold.
It's gold. Poop.
No, I mean literally the gold. The poop turns into gold. in
Yes,
that
yes.
movie.
But
Jesus poops into.
I know it's that's a movie we could do a whole thing on, but it's not horror, so we're not going to.
Well,
I mean, we could. I
Patreon.
don't know what to say about
like
that.
us more, and we'll review.
Yeah, we'll start a Patreon, and you can watch.
Do other movies.
Yeah, like you know, I mean, we've already recorded one.
No, this is the second, the third, technically.
No, I mean, we've already recorded one that might be locked behind a paywall.
Oh, sure.
Not for any good reasons. So, I guess, would you recommend Barbarian?
Absolutely.
And would you recommend Possession?
Depends on the person.
I think that's a pretty valid.
I love Possession, but I think it's for a very specific person. Like, I didn't ask Craven to watch it with me the second time I watched it.
Yeah, I mean, I love Barbarian. I enjoyed watching it the second time. It would not surprise me if I watched it again.
Barbarians has a funness to it.
There is a fun
Because, like
aspect.
I said, it has serious social commentary, but it also is just B-movie trash also, if you choose to just focus on that.
I mean, who doesn't love watching Justin Long get his eyes ripped out?
If you just want to watch a monster movie, just wait till the first act's over, and that's what you get.
Yes. I also really liked Possession and would recommend it for anybody who likes art house horror.
And somebody who likes Sam Neill. If you watched Jurassic Park and was like, Sam Neill's awesome, then watch him in this because he's a little sexy.
Yes, but also like a total asshole.
He's a piece of shit.
He's such a dickhead. Boy, it's funny. We didn't even really get into talking about toxic masculinity during this movie.
Other
But
than he's
holy
a
shit.
piece of shit.
Well, no, the whole thing is him and this other guy who clearly want to fuck each other fighting over his wife.
I think that's common in like life, actually, though. A lot of the times when guys are jealous of another guy, it's because they want to be that guy.
Yeah, but I don't think Sam Neill wanted to be Heinrich. He just really wanted that little Heinrich in his stuff.
Until his mom showed up, and then he was kind of like, ugh.
I mean, she can, if she wants to watch, she can pay.
On that note, this has been Streaming Screams, and see you next time.
Boom. Done.
Doot, 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 doot. Okay. At the time of recording, Barbarian is available on Max or HBO Max, whatever you want to fucking call it.
Yeah,
And
that fucking nonsense.
Yeah, and Hulu. In Possession is available on Shudder.
The best horror streaming site.
If you're into horror, get Shudder. It's only $6 a month.
Yeah, then you can talk with us about Joe Bob Briggs and how cool he is. And Darcy the Mail Girl, who is also fucking cool. All right. Later, guys.